Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Megan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Good. How did your week go with using your word focus?
It was okay, I think. I think I've accepted that I can't have laser focus, all the time, which has been good to accept. But in terms of working from home and focusing on certain tasks and what's most important at that time, I think it's been helpful to do a bit of time blocking within my Outlook calendar, which has been helpful, and even small things like having some light, relaxing background music while I'm working has been also helpful for focusing. So I think just, being mindful, and it's something that I think I'll always have to improve on and continually work toward, but I think I did okay. And you had limitless as your word. So
I did. It
how did
was
you find that?
good. So it was great. I loved that I was using the term in a lot of different ways. So just
Right.
keeping it sort of as an overarching theme, um, whether it was just for myself or our family, um, just kind of reaching a little bit further so that
Mm,
kind of that belief that the sky's the limit and the only thing that's stopping us is our limiting beliefs.
yes.
So I think that it was a great word for us. And I love that we do these weekly words where we end our conversations with what we're going to set an intention.
I do
So
too.
yeah, it's a fabulous way. So I like that we're recapping so our audience can also maybe share with how they use those words.
And in combination, because we had a couple of our listeners and those following us say that they combine the two, which is wonderful too. And we
Yes.
didn't know, I mean, that's great. Maybe
Yeah,
this
it
week
was
our words
really
will combine
neat.
as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. It was great. So today we're actually going to jump into the topic of resilience. And I think that this is going to be one that resonates a lot with people right now, especially with the way things have been changing in our environments. And we're being forced to show how resilient we actually are in our own lives.
Hmm.
And I think our goal today is to talk about a couple situations we've experienced personally, but also to give a little bit of sort of tips to how you might be able to approach resilience in your own day to day by the end of this chat. So I'm excited to chat with you. And I know that you actually have a fairly heartfelt story about one of the times you've really had to dig in, and I'm going to leave it to you to share that with us, Vanessa. So
Yeah.
how
So yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's a word that's used quite a bit. I mean, over this pandemic for sure. But I think sometimes it's important to define what it actually is, right? Because I think in it, with any word, people have different definitions. But um, for me, it's been that life is just twists and turns, right? And unfortunately, doesn't come with a map that tells us how to navigate all those twists and turns. And really, like that could be from just simple everyday challenges that we face both at work and at home, or traumatic events, right? So um, I think for me, resilience has always been just the saying, like, to roll with the punches, to be able to keep functioning. And it's, at one point in my life, I thought it meant like just toughing it out, being stoic or going at it alone. And just through some experiences over the last few years, I've found that it's actually quite the opposite. It's accepting our feelings and knowing how to lean on others for support,
absolutely,
along
yeah,
those rough times, right?
for sure. And I
Yeah.
think our ability to become more resilient is actually a compound effect
Yeah.
where we learn along the way. So when
Mm.
challenges are coming our way, or we're forced into a new situation unexpectedly,
Yes.
it's often times of unexpectedness in our lives that we're
Mm.
forced to be most resilient, I think.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's that combination of skills of identifying how to react, how we behave, how our stressors are combined. And I think that it can become a bit of a skill in terms of coping more effectively. I don't think that it takes
Mm.
away the impact of the need to be resilient or to feel, but I do think that there are a lot of strategies that help get through situations um, more effectively, and so that the
Yes.
well-being is protected, because it can either bring you down to rock bottom, or you
Mm.
can stay level, accept, be aware and carry through, and know that there are brighter days ahead as well. And that's
Right.
really important, I think, when it comes to resilience.
That's so well said. And I totally agree. And I think you're so right about the unexpected part, because yeah, like we don't know what's ahead of us. And if you've been through a challenging or really difficult situation, if someone were to say that was going to happen to you, 2 years from now, tomorrow, whatever it may be, sometime in the future, you would kind of want to crawl in a hole and say, I can't make it through that. Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to make it through that. And somehow in these situations, you end up on the other side, and you end up stronger on the other side, right? So I'll share a resilient story with you, and then I think you may have one to share here as well. And um, so resilience, I think, I see it every day. Like, there's always challenges day to day, and sometimes it may seem small, but to you it's big, right? But in particular, I think 2013 was like, at 31 years old right now, I mean, it was definitely one of the hardest times of my life. And when my mother was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 25 days later, it was something that, that day one of diagnosis, I was kind of like, it's 24 years old. I said, there has to be a way to fix it, right? Like, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to find a solution for it. We'll make it go away, right? And I remember at that time thinking, we can do this on our own, right? Like, I'm going to protect us from the outside. And that meant protecting us from people who were reaching out for support. I was very resistant of that. Um, and, I guess very quickly I realized that the problem couldn't be fixed, and I was going to have to accept it. And I think, in those 25 days, dealing with not only comprehending what was happening, but also just the extreme feelings and emotions of those highs and lows, and the roller coaster of emotions and all of that. I think once I accepted how I was feeling and became more self-aware of that, then I was better able to cope and be present and open myself up for other people's support. And so that's exactly what you just said earlier, right? I think when we accept what's happening, sometimes it's not what we want our reality to be. Oftentimes it's not, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when we accept, we're able to better focus on the things that are within our control, and then everything else you just have to let be what it's going to be, right? You can't control it. So I think the biggest realization of that horrible time in our lives was that I was able to, and we were able to endure much more than we ever thought possible. So back to what I said before, if someone were to say this is going to happen to you in life, you'd say there's no way. I'm not going to be able to make it through that. But somehow we're just able to weather that storm with
Yeah.
others. There's strength in numbers, and you become stronger when you get out of it, right?
Oh, wow.
So
Well, that I know that that's not an easy thing to share. So thank you for sharing that with us. And, you know, it's one of those life events that it's not planned, right?
no,
It's
absolutely not.
something that you're going to come across at various points. And unfortunately, you were so young,
Mhm.
and that really takes a different toll too when you're a young person losing a parent or a loved one. And I think that to have that perspective is such a strong quality. But I also know that it wouldn't have been easy. Like it seems now, maybe you're 7 years later
Yeah,
and you've grown, but it still doesn't take away the impact that those situations have.
exactly. Yeah,
But if you look at what you took away from that experience and the perspective that it's offered you in terms of
yeah.
how to go through situations or challenges, would you say that your self-awareness and your ability to look into situations and find mechanisms to see that there is going to be good days, like we're going to
Yeah,
get through,
yeah,
we're going to carry on this situation we're in, for example, in as the world
yes,
really probably doesn't feel as impactful as, that situation.
Yeah, it's all about the comparison, right? But I think it gives you perspective, but it also just makes you realize that nothing is permanent. Although like you don't kind of ever get over any of those things, and I don't think you ever fully heal from traumatic events in your life or anything that you would deem to be a horrible situation. You never ever get over it. It becomes part of you, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of good that comes out of it, and yeah, you just kind of, it's just that, yeah, that strength, and you're able to say, well, that's not as bad as this, or we
Yeah.
will make it through. Or also just know, like, have that empathy towards others, right, that are going through something similar, and be able to offer that support.
hmm And I think that also not letting things define us that have been
Mm,
challenges.
yes, yeah, that's
So
important.
for me, um, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness at the age of 18.
Right,
So
so that,
I have lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. And
right.
the diagnosis at the time was just overwhelming because I
Mhm.
was, I was a
So young.
teenager
Yeah,
who was an athlete and was, so ambitious to have these goals athletically. And then
absolutely.
this, physician hands me this diagnosis, along with medication that's really, quite intense. Um, and it completely changed my life.
Oh, it
And
would.
originally, I'll be quite honest, I didn't handle it well.
Oh, you
Uh,
wouldn't have.
I kind of rebelled. I treated myself poorly and didn't understand how it would be so important to create some perspective around what this meant, because
Yes,
this was a long time to live with an illness.
for sure.
And so it took a couple years to actually come up with a strategy and get confident in knowing that this doesn't have to be the defining factor of who you
Mm,
are. It's not
right,
something I even talk about that often, to tell you the truth.
right.
I have friends who will say, "Oh, I totally forgot you have that,"
Yeah, because you've
uh,
accepted it, right?
because
And
there was a lot of acceptance that came with it, but there was also a huge amount of understanding of how to live well,
mm,
and carry on, living a good life, but also understanding what triggers were, what would make me sick, what my environment needed to be
right.
to to be the most positive version.
Hmm.
So being resilient really was key, and being able to pick myself up, show myself that I could carry on, and that, I don't know what the future holds. I don't
Right.
know if
Yeah.
I'm going to get very sick in the next few years or decade. Could be tomorrow.
Mm.
But I also don't let that limit my my day to day, right?
Your
Like,
your
it's
your
not the focus.
everyday,
It's it's
right.
it's not what's going to define me. And that
And
has
it could
been,
easily be. You could just live in this constant state of fear of the unknown, and what tomorrow is going to bring, but you choose to, I think we're always more stressed when we live in the future or the past, right? So you are living today, and you feel well today,
yeah.
and then let tomorrow come as it will, right?
Yeah. And that self-awareness. So knowing when to
Yeah.
pull back is also very important, because,
Mm.
if you need an extra day of rest, or if you need to change, the program for the day, then you have to
Yeah.
allow yourself to do that without it's not an excuse in my life either. Right. So it's never,
Right.
a crutch, because early on it was a
And
huge
that would
crutch.
be defining you, right? Like, I can't do that because I have this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And so that's been huge. And, I'm proud to say that I am medication free and living,
Amazing.
healthfully, based on just staying active and being, conscious of my nutrition, and,
Yes.
having positive relationships has been huge. Limiting the stress in life,
Mm. Yeah.
also. And these are all things that, funny enough, contribute to coping, to
Yes.
resilience,
That's
to,
right. Taking care of you. Yeah.
yeah. So I feel that experience now, if I look back, is actually what made me a little bit of a stronger person
Mm.
in the
And,
future.
a better you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting what life throws at us and how we can overcome
And
it.
absolutely. And the timing of it, I mean, for you at 18, I mean, those are very forming years. And um, absolutely, that would have been tough because you're not quite as mature as you are today. And you're just seeing it as this is a crappy diagnosis, and how am I going to move through? But so glad that you've taken it on the, the positive side and seen the silver linings, and just been able to take, one step forward. And your, your mind is powerful. So, you've accepted it, you're coping, you're healthy in your mind, and then you're practicing mindfulness, and then, your body is healthier too. Right. So
Yeah, it is.
that's powerful.
So I think we came up with a few ideas that we would like to share with our listeners. We've had our own experiences,
Mhm.
but we also know that tips for building your own resilience is also important. And we want to make sure that we're able to take our experiences and form that piece of passing on some knowledge from that. So we have a couple things to share with you in terms of what might you try if you're struggling with resilience or would like to improve your resilience. And I'll start with the first one. So I think we have
Sure.
5 total
Yeah,
to leave,
5 or 6, I think,
5 or
tips.
6
Yeah.
to leave people with.
And there's definitely more. So we're excited to hear what others have to
Absolutely.
share.
And if we didn't hit on one, please share with us. But so self-awareness, first of all, I think is one thing that you've heard us come out of this with, from both of our experiences, is having a clear perception of ourselves. So knowing what's important to us, knowing how you personally react, and
Mhm.
also knowing when you might need to take 5, take 10. Um,
Yep.
and understand your surroundings. So we need to identify that, we have strengths, we have weaknesses, but we also have courage and strength. So knowing you and your internal drives
Yes.
is very important. So it's
And it's important
understanding.
to understand, like, when you understand yourself, as being self-aware, it means you're also understanding others, right? And then you can kind of, set those expectations of others, and how they're going to kind of play a role in your life, right? So
Absolutely.
that's an important part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to tackle our second one?
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's so funny because, as we were chatting about our own personal experiences, we were kind of tying these key areas of building resilience in there too. So, you heard us talk about mindfulness. So I think that is, for me, like observing like our feelings and our thoughts, but from a distance, right? So not really kind of judging them as good or bad, but just living in the moment, and like I said before, not looking at the past as much, or the future, but because those are the stressors, right? But being here today, and truly just keeping things in perspective that way, super helpful when trying
Absolutely.
to build resilience.
I love that you said, being present today. And I listened to something the other day that actually hit on that somewhat.
Okay.
The future has never been certain. So if you think
No,
about,
never.
we have this unknown and it's become a, a, a challenging thought for people. What's coming? Like, what
Mm,
don't we know? But if you really think about it, we've never known what's going to be in 6 weeks from now. We
never.
just have
Yeah.
had an idea of what we thought it would be.
Right.
So being mindful that tomorrow has never been certain. You
Never
know,
guaranteed.
it's never
Yeah.
been guaranteed, whether it was, a contract or a sale, or, your kid going to school because they felt
Yeah.
well.
Right.
Maybe they were staying home from school. So we have, being mindful of our daily feelings, I think, like you just said, is so
Yeah.
important. Uh,
Mindfulness is key.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'll tackle self-care
Yeah.
as our third, because that has been absolutely paramount in my health,
Mm,
and my plan and maintaining wellness. So just understanding what you need in terms of staying healthy, and whether it's what you're putting into your body. I mean, you and I both come from nutrition backgrounds,
we
so
know the power of food.
we know the power of food, which is very key. That energy, how we feel, that power of just getting out and going for a walk or stretching your
Mm.
body, getting up and moving. But it also is sleep, the
Oh yeah,
things of sleep
so
and
true.
rest and calming moments, meditation. It could be reading a book. It could
Hmm.
be,
And it looks different for everyone. That's the other thing, right?
exactly.
So what is self-care to you? And it looks different for everyone.
Absolutely. But making sure that that's part of your life and knowing that it is part of keeping um, that ability to be resilient.
Resilient and well overall. And I think it's important, people always say like, don't get yourself burnt out and things like that, but understanding like how you feel before you're burnt out. So for me,
Mm.
it's little things like, my throat starts to get like kind of odd, like I'm coming down with a cold, or I'm just like achy. I just feel like I've gotten hit by a truck. Like it's those things that I'm like, okay, I need to stop right now and just rest.
And that ties into your self-awareness, right? So
Understanding.
that your self-care, if it's not higher on the list at that moment in time, you are self-aware enough to know that if you're starting to get that scratchy throat or
Yeah,
feeling run down, you need to go back into that category of self-care and
that's right.
make sure that you're taking the time to do that. So it's all
Mm.
interconnected, which is the
It,
really neat part.
it really is. And I love that, we're not just born or not born with resilience, that it is a skill that we can work towards and continue to build over our lives. So for me, I mean, we spent our entire coffee with Kalea last week talking about the people in our lives, and
Yeah.
um, let's bring it up again, because positive relationships are a key factor in building resilience. I mean, um, we need people that are there to care for us, to support us. We're human. We're wired for connection, and
Yeah.
we need others. You think you can do this life on your own and be independent and get through tough times on your own, or just in your tiny little family unit, it's not going to work out as good as if you just open up and allow others to have your back, right?
It's so true. And I mean, I used to make it a point to pick up the phone and call friends every now and again before,
Mm,
you know, today's current state. And we're becoming more connected through technology. But I
right.
have a few friends who used to love when I would phone instead of text. And they'd say, "Oh my
It's
gosh,
so
you
much
picked up the phone."
right.
Yeah,
It's more
of course.
personal.
Because you actually have this conversation. And so, although we may not have been able to see each other on a regular basis, that phone call, that
Mm,
personal touch of being
yeah.
able to hear someone's voice can really lift your mood, but also maintain that. Like you said, we're wired for connection. We're wired
Yes.
to communicate.
And you
So
really can't feel, I mean, yes, words are powerful too, and you can write nice notes and whatever you may want to do, but you can't always feel that emotion behind just text. So
yeah,
to hear a voice, or to see someone as on a live video or something,
yeah,
is next best to seeing them in person. Yeah.
yeah. And I think purpose also. So
Yeah,
um,
that's a good resilience builder.
yeah. So finding your purpose. So what is it that you show up for every day? What is your why? And that can change over time, and your purpose each day can be a little bit different. So you
Mhm.
can, to throw in your word from this past week, focus. What's your focus of the day can also contribute to your purpose of that day. But generally speaking, how do you feel? How
Mm.
do you show up each day? And is your purpose to be an effective team player this day? Are you going to be a mom 100% today? Are you
Mm.
going to use that why to contribute to your resilience? So understanding that
Right.
it's bigger than just you as
Right.
well, and
Yeah.
that your contribution is important.
So yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Um, so and I think our next one is just about, having confidence in ourselves to roll with the punches, right? So not only acceptance, but the self-confidence, and to keep moving forward and knowing that we can, right? Even if it's small baby steps, forward is forward, right?
Yeah.
And you will get through on that other side of the storm, big or small.
Yeah.
Um, and you will be more resilient on the other side. So,
Absolutely. So
yeah. So,
yeah. Thanks so much, Vanessa, for a great chat today. I think we covered a lot of great ground. Um, and I think it's an applicable topic for a lot of people right now because we're
it
all in this
is.
state of
It can resonate
resiliency.
with many. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we're all in this same state of resiliency, no matter where you are, what you do, what your purpose
Yeah.
is, what your job is, what your situation. We
That's
really
right.
are uniquely in this state of resilience.
Hmm. And it's not really a question whether I think we need it today, especially.
Yeah.
And we just need to find strategies in order to build it from within. And, with that said, I hope our listeners are able to share with us a couple of other resilience builders that they've been, that they've found to be helpful in their lives. And because I know there's more than 6 areas.
Absolutely. And it's continuously something you can work on and you get better
Yes.
at
Yeah.
it over the years. And um, yeah, I think we're able to conquer more than we know.
Always able to endure more than we ever thought possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
So, yeah, I'm
we're,
curious. I'm more interested to know about your word for the week,
I was
and I think
just
you're
about to
just
ask
as
you what your
excited.
word of the week was going to be.
You want me to
Uh,
go first?
you go first. Yeah, you
Okay.
share yours first.
Well, my word is simplify, and I'm not going to share anything more on that word because it's part of simplify.
Perfect.
That's my word moving forward this week.
Awesome. Mine's going to be organize.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah. So going into the summer, and we know kids are going to be home. We know that the house is going to be in a certain state. So I'm going to be
Yeah.
organized enough to be productive in all the areas for work, school. And I like being organized. So the last few weeks
Yeah.
has been challenging. But now is the time to set those things up.
It feels good. Yeah. Well, so that's our word. So to our listeners, we'd love for you to share Coffee with Kalea within your communities, and of course you can share your support. We would love for you to do that by liking, sharing, or even leaving a positive comment on both our YouTube or podcast channels. And we hope that you'll engage within our community over the week as we talk more about resilience. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Coffee with Kalea.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks.